You wanna run this place, you fucking slut? How do you know?
You may not like it, but this is what peak comedy looks like. For some reason, the Emmys thinks this show is a comedy. Another round of Emmy Awards, another round of the Bear scooping up a bunch of comedy statues that arguably should have gone to shows with actual jokes.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Even the hosts this year were calling the show out.
But in the true spirit of the Bear, we will not be making any jokes.
It begs the question, how can a show be a comedy if it isn't trying to be funny? The funniest scene in the show is this pretty awkward moment about the main character's dead brother.
I thought you'd killed yourself.
No. Sir, that was my brother.
It's not exactly the Big Bang Theory. Imagine the show with a laugh track.
He did leave me our family's restaurant in his will, which was a nice curveball considering he never let me work there with him, even though I'm pretty good at this, right?
That's actually part of the show. I didn't edit that in. Needless to say, The Bear is not a conventional comedy, at least by modern standards. But if you zoom out a bit and look at the whole history of drama, there's a case to be made for its legitimate comedic value. It may not be ranking high in the laughs per minute department, but it has good vibes. Some of the time. It's the good feeling that keeps us coming back for more. In this video, I'm going to make that case, and try to convince you that The Bear is a comedy, actually. Also, here's a spoiler warning. You've been warned. It's going to be The Bear and a few other shows. Real quick side tangent, I'm blown away by how much the channel has grown in the last couple months. Thank you all for watching these videos. And if you end up enjoying this one, please smash that like button and consider subscribing. It really means a lot. Now back to the main event.
The Bear sort of is a drama.
Yeah, it's in the comedy category, and I don't think people are laughing watching The Bear.
The Bear is one of the most decorated shows in Emmy history, but not where you would expect. It's been hanging out in the comedy category, the opposite of where most people thought it would land. And it's not like it's an unfunny show.
Where we'd have mold, they would collapse when I go like this.
But these moments of levity are the punctuation marks between some heavy character moments. The Bear is about a young chef who tragically inherits his older brother's restaurant. Carmi comes from the world of fine dining, but his brother's place is basically Hell's Kitchen. It's a rundown, sloppy establishment. They're barely getting their bills paid on time. The kitchen staff, who we genuinely see love each other, are undisciplined and hesitant to change.
Bread stays the same. Gravy stays the same.
So what is this doing in the comedy section? The show is tonally and thematically far from a traditional TV comedy. The characters are fighting against the clock to get their work done, and often fighting each other. One guy even gets stabbed. And in between the external fights, we see them struggling with their own internal pain. It's often depicting characters having panic attacks, and dealing with heavy things like suicide and dysfunctional families. And not the fun kind of dysfunction either, like we see on shows like The Simpsons, where the dysfunction is the joke, and is played up for laughs. Forks are thrown, people are screaming, hearts are broken. The season 2 episode Fishes is so good, but it's oozing with so much trauma and anxiety that I never want to watch it again. By the way, this is the episode that won the Emmy for Best Comedy Directing in 2024. So is this category fraud? The Bear's inclusion and acceptance into the comedy section has offended many professional TV critics. The Bear is not a comedy, and it's time to stop pretending it is. So long as The Bear keeps submitting itself as a comedy, it is actively hurting comedy. Did a bear bully you in high school or something? This is a tweet from a writer on Abbott Elementary, one of The Bear's competitors. Proud of Abbott for all of its Emmy nominations this year, especially Outstanding Comedy Series, as we are definitely a program where the majority of the running time of at least 6 episodes are primarily comedic, as defined by the TV Academy. Now, I understand her frustration that her pretty funny show, Abbott Elementary, is having to compete against a seriously unfunny show, like The Bear, for Best Comedy Series. And of course, there's a cynical case for why FX submitted The Bear as a comedy. The logic goes like this. They think it'd win more awards than if it were in the Drama Club, which is normally a pretty stacked category. They'd have to compete against Shogun, their own show, which won basically every award it was nominated for. Now granted, FX also is competing against itself in comedy, with shows like What We Do in the Shadows and Reservation Dogs, so this case loses a bit of luster here. But I think we're missing the forest for the trees, and I think we're all talking past each other because we're not seeing eye to eye on what a comedy or comedic even is. Now bear with me for a second here, because I'm going to do the only thing worse than trying to explain why a joke is funny, and that's nail down what a definition of comedy is. All the angry articles and comments I've seen are assuming we're on the same page about what a comedy looks like. Audiences probably have something that looks like 30 Rock or Modern Family when they think of modern TV comedy. A show with a silly tone, and makes people laugh, and it leaves audiences feeling good after watching it. which is definitely a form of comedy, but it doesn't cover the whole genre. The classic definition is a narrative that ends happily. And you know what? If it was good enough for Dante's Inferno, it'll be good enough for us. I think this is probably the definition the Emmys is using, most of the time. It doesn't explain how Fleabag Season 2 won Outstanding Comedy in 2019. What a gut punch that was. It's a very heartbreaking ending. But I digress. Today, simply having a happy ending isn't the modern definition of comedy anymore. This is a remnant from ancient Greece, from Aristotle's Poetics, where he described the two types of stories, comedies and tragedies. Tragedies are the serious stories, and they have bad endings for the characters, often because of a flaw within themselves or a bad choice they made. Comedies, on the other hand, are exactly the opposite. They have happy endings, and feature characters trying to improve their standings in life. This is where I think The Bear slots in. I think the best evidence of its comedic nature comes from the Season 2 episode, Forks. It follows Carmi's cousin Richie, who up until now has had a hard time adjusting to the changes at the restaurant. In the first few episodes, he's kind of a scoundrel. He's shooting his gun in the air, he's swearing loudly in front of the customers, and he's selling drugs in the back alley. He's at a pretty low point in his life. He's kind of a mess. He lost his best friend, and he's resenting all the changes happening around him. In his mind, the kids are taking over, leaving him with no purpose. He's a sad dude, and he's really going through it. After he's about to steal electricity from a neighboring business, Carmi sends him to work for a week at the restaurant where he trained. Richie's assignment is to clean forks all week, so naturally he thinks he's being punished and sent away so the others could work without his chaotic energy. He gets called out for leaving streaks on the forks.
I'm sorry, bro, but we need to have some forks without streaks in them. You don't have to drink the Kool-Aid, Richie. I just need you to respect me. I need you to respect the staff, I need you to respect the diners, and I need you to respect yourself.
Maybe it's because he's no longer in a dysfunctional place. Maybe the fork's broken. But something is getting through to him. He's seeing this amazing kitchen operate at a high level, and seeing all the staff taking their roles on the team seriously. And more importantly, the effect it's having on the customers. The Richie we've seen before is definitely a people person, but he didn't really seem to value the customer experience over his own ego. Here, he's given a chance to make the night special for a group of people. He learns about how some customers are visiting Chicago, but won't have time to try a deep dish pizza. Or as Jon Stewart would call it, a casserole.
It's a casserole.
Richie goes the extra mile, literally, hand-delivering a pizza to the chef who transforms it with some culinary magic. And when he finally brings it to the table, we can see he's totally in his element. This is the moment when he transforms from the guy accidentally spiking the punch bowl with Xanax into the guy who's listening to others and trying to blow their minds with hospitality.
Manja, baby.
To physically mark this change, his character is seen wearing a suit whenever he's at work for the rest of the season.
I'm wearing a suit because it makes me feel better about myself.
This is exactly what a comedy can be, a character going from zero to hero. He's still not perfect, far from it. He's still getting into fights with his cousin all the time. But on net, he's getting better. His character has purpose again, and he isn't feeling as bad about himself anymore. This is the case for many of the show's characters. Marcus was an early adopter of Carmi's methods, transforming himself into a great pastry chef. Tina hated taking Sydney's direction until she saw the system working and wanted to keep up and keep improving herself. And I think the same is probably going to happen to our main characters, Carmi and Sydney, that they'll have their cathartic moments closer to the end of the series. The verdict is still out on whether or not we'll get a happy ending for the bear. I haven't seen all of season 3 yet, but knowing there's a season 4 means there's still hope the crew can pull their lives together and find a peaceful equilibrium. I'm personally hoping they'll center the original beef sandwich and make it the best version of itself, in the same way they're transforming themselves. It may not be the exact ending, but I expect something within that ballpark. It is a comedy after all. Now obviously, these types of character arcs aren't something we normally associate with comedy in this day and age. This is the kind of story we'd slot under the drama section by default, which I have some beef with. Literally every show is a drama. Even the comedies. Those are dramas. If it's a fictional narrative, it all falls within the drama umbrella. It is a useless genre description, and it functions as a watered-down version of tragedy, the quote-unquote serious form of drama. But because audiences don't like bad endings all the time, we don't use tragedy anymore. A lot of the discourse has been about how the bear is stealing the spotlight from a lot of deserving comedies, when technically it's the opposite way around. It's actually preferential treatment for the comedies, as they can double dip in both categories. I think the Academy, though, is somewhat tied to tradition here. Historically, hour-long shows were the domain of the serious dramas, and the half-hour shows were for comedies. But the streaming era has upended a lot of those conventions. A clear example would be Orange is the New Black. It was winning comedy Emmys until 2015, when the Emmys put in a rule saying half-hour shows had to be classified as comedies, and hour-long shows like Orange is the New Black had to be classified as dramas. It was nominated the following year for Outstanding Drama. I don't think it won, and it's one of the few shows that was nominated for drama and comedy throughout its run. That rule was lifted a few years later, in time for shows like The Bear to complicate the conversation once again. Going forward, I think the award shows should offer more clear direction about how they want to separate dramas and comedies, because there is a difference between the serious shows and the silly shows, and if they're going to do it, they might as well be clear about their intentions. If they want to do it more based on tone, which they're functionally doing anyway, then they should just do that. As we move further into the streaming era and away from the constraints of a TV schedule, they won't have time rules to lean on anymore. Replace the drama category with a serious one, and comedy with silly, and call it a day. It's functionally what these categories are perceived to be anyway, but I'm curious to know what you think. Do you think TV award shows should do away with the comedy-drama subtext? Please leave a comment down below. Most of the time, I love reading what you guys have to say. And until next time, my name is Adam from MediumX, signing out.